When the patient recovers from the reaction, let's say a day later, we can repeat the same experiment and simply place a vial containing a diluted wheat solution into the hand of the patient, and the heart rate variability will show the same stress reaction that the patient had when he ate it, except it's a little bit less. Then we were looking for tools. How can we make it that the reaction is the same when something is energetically introduced into the field? How can we make the patient react the same way that the patient would react as if they ate the food? And this is where this invention came in. It's called signal enhancer. It's a special material that I'm not going to disclose what it is. It's a plastic material that has an absolute perfect crystalline arrangement of the molecules in it. That means every molecule has exactly the same distance to every other molecule in a perfect geometrical structure. There is no irregularities in this material. That is a precondition. And if I place now a vial of diluted wheat on here and hold it close to the patient's heart rate variability will now show the same stress reaction that the patient would show if they eat the wheat. Before I discuss the oral options, I'd like to point out an important principle, and that is that biotoxins such as mold toxins that are already mentioned, or for example quinolinic acid from Lyme disease, and mercury all have to be moved through the same detox pathways, detox channels in our system. And by removing one group of toxins, we're aiding and facilitating the removal of the others, even if we do not directly interact with them. So my mercury detox program, as it's often misnamed, is the same program that I use to remove mold mycotoxins and Lyme biotoxins. And if you want to, tetanus biotoxins and anaerobic biotoxins from gut problems. This is an important principle. We do not have good enough research on how to remove Lyme neurotoxins and Lyme biotoxins, or even simple things like streptolysin, the strep biotoxins, or even the most important, the staph biotoxins. There's two very potent biotoxins that make staph infections so vicious, and yet when you look in the literature, there's really nothing to be found there. However, I've treated a few cases of resistant staph, and we simply used our removal program of lead and mercury, and then the antibiotics that did not work before suddenly started working beautifully. So when I discuss the oral options here, just kind of keep in mind that we are addressing a much larger field of problems than mercury or lead. The other point I'd like to make is that there is intrinsic mechanisms that we use to clean out the cells. There is a group of cell organelles called peroxisomes, and peroxisomes are basically the liver of the cell. It's the detox organ inside the cell that's responsible for binding and processing toxins and then to eliminate them. And to turn on the peroxisomes, we use chlorella. I know there's medical drugs that can do that also, like Actos, but the Chinese literature is full of showing that chlorella is really doing a better job at it. And so chlorella will always be my number one in terms of the oral options, because it addresses the body's own intrinsic mechanisms of how to do this. I have on my website a quite long list of other things that are known about chlorella and that are published in the literature. The website is klinghardt.neurobiology.com, where you can read up more on the literature on it. Let me explain briefly how detoxification works. There is 3 steps: phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3, that are done in every cell in the body. But more prevalently done, to a larger volume done in the liver. The liver is, of course, our specialized organ for detoxification. Next in line would be the kidney, and after that would be the skin. They're all rich in these detox enzymes. The first step is that the phase 1 takes a toxin and breaks it apart into smaller particles, some of which may be more toxic than the original substance. Phase 2 is the step by which the body binds these toxic substances to some of the body's own molecules that makes the substance non-toxic. Phase 3 is then binding this complex to a transporter molecule that allows it to be excreted and shuttled out either in the kidney or in the skin or in the liver. Now, the transporter molecules, 90% of the toxins are excreted through the liver, through the bile, into the small intestine, and then are excreted with the stool. However, many of them are reabsorbed on the way down because they're neurotoxins. They have an affinity for the nerve endings in the gut. And so to prevent that, we give binding agents in the gut. And there's an amazing thing that happens. When you bind toxins in the gut, you're cleaning up the mucous membranes in the gut. That gives a feedback signal to the liver and kind of say, hey, we're ready for more toxins because we're clean now. You can process more toxins. And it turns on the phase 3 detox. And when that works successfully, that gives feedback to phase 2 to turn that on. And if that works, it gives feedback to phase 1 for that to work better. So without having to always give an agent that goes deep into the brain or deep into the liver or deep into the connective tissue, we can simply work on the surface of the gut to remove toxins here, to create a cascade of events where the body on its own starts detoxing on very, very deep levels. So these agents will always be my first choice. So I would like to introduce how to measure the incoming electrosmog at a sleeping location. And the first demonstration I will give is how to measure microwave. Cell phone radiation is microwave radiation, and we're exposed to it every day, whether we use a cell phone or not. Just a general broadcasting background creates microwave radiation in every home in the United States, and I will show you how to measure it in the bed location and then how to protect yourself from it. So what we're using in this is an instrument that is used by engineers and by technicians worldwide. This instrument measures microwave. It's measured in microwatts per square meter, and it is fairly simple to use. What I'm using, there's a couple of settings on the instrument. I'm measuring the average exposure to microwave in a particular area here, and I'm using the mode that detects pulse microwave. And it sounds like something like this. If there's no microwave exposure, you don't hear anything.